This is Dr. DJ Robinson, and you are listening to the Spirit of Rochester, rspirit.online, 24/7 gospel radio and music, the best internet radio station for gospel music all day, every day. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get started.
Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey of self-discovery and healing with Dr. DJ Robinson? She provides seminar and counseling packages which are designed to provide sustained support and guidance as you navigate your path to wholeness. A complimentary 15 to 20-minute initial consultation is available to help you choose the best fit. Visit drdjrobinson.com for more information. That's drdjrobinson.com.
Here are the first five. The reason why I put this here is because for the first 5 sessions, we're going to talk about these 5 things. So we have the biology, the behavior, boundaries, the the baggage block, and then the breakthrough, or the breakthrough and then the baggage block. So today we're going to talk about the biospiritual baseline, which is moving from a place of why do I feel this way, to understanding how hormones and how history shape your internal conflict, right? And so one thing that I've been working on, and this is an old cartoon, I'm not sure how many people actually know what this cartoon actually is, but
Go,
it is
go, Power Rangers.
it's almost Power Rangers, but this is actually a cartoon called Voltron, and it's very, very, very old. But it does follow the same concept of Power Rangers. That when we are fully integrated, we become the super person that we are destined to be. We can fight off the huge enemies in our lives, the huge traumas, the huge obstacles when we integrate. Sometimes when we're compartmentalized, and we're sectioned off and we're trying to handle things with one particular personality profile or one particular aspect of our lives or one area, it doesn't help. And so sometimes we have to become, what I'm working on right now is the integrated giant, that we, which is an actual part of where we can combine all of our life experiences, our whole stories, and become our whole selves, right? So that I wanted to just give you that visual for yourself. Some of the work that I did here is copywritten, so I asked that if anybody wants to use it, and any images or videos or diagrams that I'm using here are for educational purposes. Some of it is mine, some of it is not, but it's the intellectual work of my own research. All right, so the biology, let's get into it. Let me just say I'm thankful for this space. I invite the divine into this space. I invite divine understanding into this space and into this time. We praise the Lord. We praise the God within us and the timeline that we are operating in right now. We say Ashe and Amen. So irritation is actually information. I used to wonder why I would get so irritated about so many different things. And I started to realize that it is actually informing me in a way that I had not recognized before. I used to really like what they would call crash out and or spaz out or crash out and really completely lose it. But now I'm starting to realize that these minor irritations, now they're minor. They used to be big. But now I'm starting to realize that they're actually informing me for what I actually need to do. So the first focus that I want to focus on here is the amygdala. What we must understand about our biology is that your brain has an alarm system, but it is also connected to your nervous system. And so the amygdala can actually shut your whole brain down. It can shut down your ability to think, your ability to reason. And so, like my granny would say, my granny would tell me often, emotions do not have ears. When your amygdala in your mind, in your brain, begins to fire off, it actually triggers a response in you that your brain cannot. It actually it overrides your brain and overrides your cognitive thinking. It overrides your decision making power because there's something that is happening, something that is triggering, that is causing you not to be able to reason. And so again, your emotions don't have ears. So when your amygdala is activated, it activates an emotional response and you can't hear, you can't reason. And so with that, they call that the prefrontal cortex is where you begin to reason with yourself. And so during those moments of stress, during those moments of pressure, if you feel that you are under too much pressure, if you feel that you're being rushed into something, it can trigger an emotional response, or it can actually trigger your amygdala, which will override your mind and override your ability to think clearly, which is your prefrontal cortex. Now, the prefrontal cortex is actually your whole self. It is that integrated giant. It is that assembling of the Power Rangers or that assembling of Voltron. It is your whole self. But when you are triggered by something in your memory, and this is where I'm getting ready to go as far as biology is concerned, but memory is not just your brain. Memory is your whole entire body. So let's keep in mind that anytime you are triggered, this is happening to your whole self. The reason why the amygdala is able to override the prefrontal cortex is because it is a whole self override. It is not just your mind. It's not just your brain. So a lot of times we say, oh my gosh, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's happening to me. Well, it's a whole override. You're actually, I remember we used to talk about, you're actually jumping yourself. Like in a fight, you're actually getting jumped by your own self, like your whole own self. It's almost like a duality of your personality. So now that, let's say you have 5 characteristics on one hand and you only have 2 operating on the other, those 5 are going to override and jump the other 2. And so it's going to force you into this response or this reaction. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we understand why this is actually happening. So trauma is biological. Trauma literally bonds to your nervous system. And I'm trying to kind of keep moving here because we only have a few minutes. But trauma actually bonds to your nervous system. So you have a lot of different things that are happening in your body all at one time. The best way that I can tell you to show you that how trauma is biological is that when something happens, and so let me break this down. A traumatic situation can happen to you. How you respond to that traumatic situation based on your training, based on what's in your genetic memory, based on what's in your historical germline. And I know I'm using big words, but I'm going to break them down. Based on all of that, the way that you respond is almost like a memory foam. So like, say for instance, you know how they would have those beds like Posturepedic or something like that. And it would say that this has a memory foam. So what happens is it contours to the shape of your body. Well, the same thing happens when you have traumatic situations. How you respond is like almost laying down on that memory foam, and your mind and your whole self will begin to remember the pattern of how you laid and how you were there. And what ends up happening now is that when you get ready to, if something else happens and you get ready to lay down, you can get, you fall right back into that same contour. You fall right back into that pattern. And the more repeated that you have it, the more that it outlines you in the sand. Like, say, for instance, if we were go outside right now in the snow and you go out and you make a snow angel. If you were to go back out there again and lay right in the same specific place and do the same thing, nothing would change from that shape or from that pattern. Well, this is what happens when you have biological trauma stored in your nervous system. Remember, it is your nervous system that is responding to the situation, not just your cognitive thinking. Your nervous system has the ability to override your cognitive thinking. And going back to what my granny said, now your emotions no longer have ears. So trauma literally bonds to your nervous system. It is a memory foam type of contouring or type of memory. So let me just make sure I covered all of that. Yes. All right. So even with those of us who read the Bible, there's a scripture that says the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Well, this is actually what's happening. The spirit is willing. You want to be able to respond a different way. However, your biology, your flesh, your nervous system is remembering the contour. It's remembering how you responded before. And then here it is. It's actually remembering how your mother responded. And it's remembering how your mother's mother responded and how your father responded and how your father's father responded. And it's actually bringing all of those things up because it's called, genetic history or genetic memory. And this is something that is programmed in your germline. So actually what it is when you respond and you don't know why you're responding to things a certain way or why you're behaving with a certain pattern or why your thinking goes to a different trajectory, or you may be responding and it's like almost not the norm of what other people would expect. It's because there's a contour or some type of behavioral pattern that you're used to, or that, that has been marked in your genetic memory, and now you're going to continue to respond the same way. So inherited trauma is actual historical trauma that is passed down through your germline, in which when I say germline, I'm basically saying your cells. You received 22, wait a minute, let me make sure I got it right. You received 24 cells from your dad, 24 cells from your mom, which gives you 48 chromosomes. Well, guess what? There are messages. There is memory foam in those chromosomes. I hope I got those numbers right because I didn't do that part of the research. But I know that you have these chromosomes that come to make up your whole self. And so before you were when you were formed in the womb, you had this genetic memory. You knew all of these different traumas. So when you're responding now and not really knowing, where did that come from? Why did I just spaz out like that? Why am I afraid to be in a room with these type of men or these type of women? Why am I afraid or I feel nervous or anxious in these particular type of situations? I've never had to deal with this before. It's actually not you. It's your history that is informing your nervous system at the time, so that you're getting ready to either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And depending on how your parents or your grandparents or even those parents before them responded to those types of situations, your amygdala will say, we recognize this. We know what this is. And you're like, I don't know what this is. And you're like, yes, we know what this is. We've been here before. You've never been there before, but your parents have been there before. Your grandparents have been there before. And maybe even their parents have been there before. And so this is how inherited trauma begins to live in the body. When you look at me, you can see, oh, she has features like her grandmother. She has features like her father. She has features like her mother. You can see certain features in me, but they're not just outward features that we look at. We're also looking at the inward features as well. Okay. Let me just make sure I got everything that I wanted to get on that slide. Okay, good. So is it you? So you want to ask yourself, is it me or is it my history that is informing me in this moment right now? When you feel like you're getting ready to crash out, when you feel that moment of anxiety, when you feel that moment of when you're under pressure and you don't really know, like we talked about earlier, in the icebreakers, as far as how do you feel about this? Some of us, we said some things about how our families looked at poverty or how it was interpreted with our families. Those kind of thought patterns, those kind of opinions, they are in our genetic memory. And so that's why sometimes we wrestle with how we feel about our current and our particular situations, and it can have us feel in some type of way. So it's all in your cells. It's in your cells. This is why nutrition is very important, because of the way that your cells are made up. In order to change anything in your cells must be healthy. So when we talk about germ line, we're talking about the line, the lineage of what is in your cells and how they remember things that you have probably never been through. In your cells, there is genetic memory. The same way that you can get your cheekbones from your mom, you can also get some of her coping mechanisms and some of her anxieties. You can also inherit trauma. The same way, and this is a research that I've done, the same way that addiction is passed down from generation to generation through germline genetic memory, the same way that that addiction is passed, the same way that trauma is passed. It can become an inherited behavior depending on the environment in which that person is placed in. If we as a people are continually placed in an environment that that propagates racism, propagates sexism, propagates and continues to do that on a repeated cycle, then guess what? We're always going to respond a certain way, or we're going to be re-exposed to those traumatic situations, which now makes us lay back down in that memory foam, and it doesn't give the memory foam a chance to puff back up and reset. And so if you're always laying down in the same spot, if you always are going out and making the same snow angel, we don't give the new snow, or we don't give the memory foam a chance to reset. So it's very important that we, not only as a people, not only as women, not only as mothers, take that time. And I mean this time, not in 15 minutes. I'm talking about maybe 3 to 4 years, maybe teaching our children a different pattern of behavior, a different pattern of lifestyle. We have to allow that memory foam to reset. We have to allow that fresh snow to fall so that our generations behind us, even though they remember, they can make their own snow angels. They can have their own memory foam to contour. I need hearts, and make sure that I hope that I'm really trying to get this and that you all are following. So generational trauma is not about memory. It's about biology. Okay. So we have to remember. In epigenetics, I know this is a lot, but in epigenetics, that's how the genes are passed down from generation to generation. Depending on how what's in your programming and what's in your lineage, how you respond to things can be hellish or it can be holy. And this is why the reset is so important. When you give your germline, or when you give your generational timeline, that means your children, your children's children. That's the biblical language, right? That if you obey me, I will bless you to the 1,000th generation. If you disobey me, I will curse you to the 3rd and 4th. Well, in order to stop that 3rd and 4th curse, you have to take a time and a span to actually change the environment in which we bring our children up, or which we bring and how we respond to these traumatic situations. Remember, trauma happens every day. Traumatic situations happen every day. You turn on Facebook, somebody is going through some type of crisis somewhere, and you can even experience other people's traumatic situation just as easily, right? without even going through your own. And then the response, if you're empathetic or you had empathy, then your response will end up being like, oh my gosh, I don't believe that happened. Your response now is, either hellish or holy. Okay. And so how you respond to things has to do with your epigenetics. So a lot of times what we end up doing is we end up redlining ourselves when we are in battle with ourselves, when our spirit is willing, but our cells are fighting against are fighting against us. Our nervous system is fighting against us. Our history is fighting against us. We are not going crazy. We are trying to align ourselves and trying to stay faithful to a narrative that has been passed down to us from generation to generation. So there's something that I call spiritual redlining. When you go through spiritual redlining, it's when you deny yourself the areas of peace. It's when you deny yourself the places that you really need to heal. And this is why it's important for us to make space intentionally. This is why this, motivated mothers is important, to make space intentionally for our cells to heal, for us to have spaces where we can feel safe, where we can articulate, where we can express ourselves. Because a lot of us have been taught, not only by our family or by our heritage or by our history, but even by current events, to stay hypervigilant. Staying in that state will cut us off from being able to have places of peace. The dissociation, where we don't want to tell anybody our business. Staying in those states of hypervigilance and dissociation can lead us to chronic fatigue. You are not tired in your body. You're tired of being watchful. You're tired of being having, and that's what I put in the chat when the people finally sent me a letter and was like, you don't qualify. I was like, you know what? That means I don't have to make the trip down here and sit for hours when I could be doing something different with my life. Now, does that work for everybody? No, but I was chronically fatigued from trying to comply with the expectations of other people. And I say that not only for just the systems, but I'm also talking about societies. I'm talking about cultures. People expect, or you think that people expect, for you to do something a certain way. So now you're always hyper vigilant, always looking for, just, and then when you get too hyper vigilant, you're like, you know what? I don't even want to do the whole thing. Dissociation. Why? Because you're tired. You're chronically fatigued from trying to satisfy and trying to please everything, and then stay loyal to the history of your culture, of your heritage, and things of that nature. So let me make sure I just got everything, because it's almost, I want to be able to get some. So what do you do when you have spiritual redlining happening? You're denying yourself. Remember, this is no one else that is denying it. This is a battle that is happening within you. It's a battle that's happening within yourself. Now add hormones onto that, which is biological, right? So every month for the women, every month we go through a hormonal cycle that if we don't eat the right things, if we don't nourish ourselves, if we have too much sodium in our body, too much sugar in our body, not enough water. Remember that your cells are made up of about almost 80% water. So if you are severely dehydrated, your brain, now if your nervous system hijacks your brain, or if your amygdala begins to hijack your mind, then guess what? You really have no weapons, right? And so the Bible even says that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Well, here's the thing. If you don't have the right amount of water, the right amount of nutrition, if you've been eating a lot of sodium, if you've been eating a lot of additives, if we've been eating a lot of high saturated fat foods, haven't been eating a salad. Like I even realized, I said, you know what? I need a salad and some water. I really just do, because I might have had too many chicken nuggets. I might have eaten out too much this week. And guess what? I don't have the energy now to fight the nervous system that is going to hijack me now with hormones backing it, right? And so now we have a lot of different things that are happening, and we end up closing ourselves in, becoming increasingly chronically fatigued. And now not only is our mind fatigued, but now our bodies are fatigued as well. So we have to be very careful of that. Now the next thing is I want to talk to you really quickly about is that we have to have a circuit breaker. This is how we hijack our own systems. And we're talking biologically. We're not talking about behavior yet. We're not talking about, let me make sure we're not talking about the behavior. We're not talking about the boundaries yet. We're talking strictly about biology. Okay. And so the circuit breaker for us is that, like, say for instance, you have a house, your whole body is your house. All right. Well, guess what? If the circuits get overloaded in one room, you're going to trip the breaker, and all of that whole one room is going to shut down. If you plug in too many things in that one area of the house, now that thing is going to trip the breaker. You're going to crash out in that one area, and then now you have to go and you have to reset the breaker box. Some of us have the capacity. Some of us are able to handle the load. Some of us are able to, and it's called in medical terms an allostatic load. But some of us have the capacity in those rooms to be able to handle those situations. But there are some who do not, right? And so we have to make sure that we have enough capacity to handle the situations that we are currently facing. Because here's the truth of the matter. Situations are going to happen in this life. You are going to have trouble. You are going to have traumatic situations that are going to happen. You are going to have life-changing things, having a baby, moving, being denied anything, being accepted for things. All of these things happen that change the trajectory of how you behave and how you live your life. And so when those things happen, you need to be able to handle the load. When they plug in, you need to be able to have enough capacity in your circuits to be able to handle the load. Now, what happens if you plug up too many things in the whole house? Remember the Voltron, in the whole integrated being of yourself. You have too many things plugging, and then there might be some things outside. You get a power outage. Well, now it's not about just resetting the one breaker. It's about resetting the whole thing. This is why it's important for us to intentionally take time to do an assessment. How many things do I have plugged into my life? How many things am I plugged into? How much capacity do I really have for this? How does my history and the way that my family has thought about it? How did my mother handle this? How did my father handle this? How does this all inform me? Not cognitively. Remember, this is not happening to you cognitively. This is happening to your whole entire integrated self, your whole story. A lot of times we try to take little compartments of our story, but it's about our whole story. This is happening to our whole self. So a lot of times you have to go and reset the entire circuit breaker, and taking that time out to do that assessment. How much can I actually handle? Because if you know how much you can plug in, then now you are starting to change the trajectory. You are giving the snow time to come and fill in the snow angel. You are giving the memory foam time to lift back up and reset itself so that you can start anew and start fresh and say, okay, we're going to change the way that this pattern conforms. Next, your frequency. So this is why the circuit breaker is important. The frequency of your brain waves. I will give this to you. I will give this to you, or I'll put it up somewhere where you can have this, depending on how stimulated you are, right? The gamma is multi-processing. That's when you have way too many things plugged in. And if you can see the way that these flow, you will understand that tapping into a certain type of frequency. So again, your health comes with, I know this is a lot. Your health comes with being able to Eat the right type of things. That goes into your brain frequency. What you listen to on a daily basis, how many times you pick up your phone, what you're paying attention to. These are the waves or the currents, right? That can either overload your system or they can cause your system to be calm. When you start to think about these frequencies, when you start to think about how many things am I actually plugging in? Am I multi processing? Am I in a creative or flow state? Am I focused? Do I have inner peace? Right? And so when we start to look at these things as far as frequencies, we'll now start to understand our patterns, and we'll understand how many things can I plug into that circuit breaker? How many things can I actually plug up into that particular room? My mom room, my professional room, my nurturing room, my pastoral room, whatever room. But if you have everything plugged in, all the lights on, everything all at one time, yes, you're going to be multi-processing, and you have the risk, you run a serious risk of a power outage, right? Of the whole integrated self. So I hope that helps there. The last, we're getting right to the end. The last thing I want to talk to you is about the strong one syndrome. And at first I had the strong woman, the Black woman, but the strong one syndrome, and that makes it more universal.
Thank you so much for tuning into this broadcast. If you'd like to get access to more content, remember to visit my website to listen to podcast archives and videos. You can find them at drdjrobinson.com/broadcast. Thanks again for tuning in. I pray that you have strength in your body, wisdom for your mind, and peace in your soul. May God be with you until we meet again.